The first thing the old house gave the veteran wasn't a place to sleep. It was a question nobody in town wanted answered. Ethan never heard the truck pull up. He only noticed Koda standing perfectly still, staring at a faded wall as if it were alive. Outside, someone pounded on the front door. Inside, a cold draft slipped across Ethan's boots from a place where no doorway should have existed. He reached for the wall and froze. What do you think Ethan is about to discover? The metal clink came first, soft, hollow, somewhere close. Ethan Cole's eyes snapped open before his mind caught up. His hand moved on instinct, reaching under the seat of the old Ford pickup, fingers closing on empty space where a rifle hadn't been in years. His breath stayed shallow, controlled. Listen first. Move second. Silence pressed in. Then wind. Just wind pushing loose scrap against the rusted gas pump 20 feet away. The same sound it had made twice already that night. Ethan exhaled through his nose, slow. Count it down. 5, 4, 3. Koda lifted his head from the passenger seat, ears forward, amber eyes cutting through the dark. No bark. No growl, just watching. Easy, Ethan murmured. The dog didn't relax. Not fully. Neither did he. The Wyoming night sat cold and empty around them. The kind of cold that didn't rush you. It waited, patient, working its way in through seams and bone. The pickup's engine had been dead for hours. Gas cost money he didn't have anymore. Ethan rubbed a hand across his face, feeling the grit of 2 days without a proper wash. The dashboard clock blinked 2:17 a.m., dim and unreliable. He didn't need it. His body kept its own time now, short sleep, sharp wake, always ready for something that wasn't there. Except sometimes it was. He shifted in the seat. The ache in his lower back flared, same spot where the Humvee door had slammed into him outside Kandahar. He ignored it. Pain was just information. You filed it. You moved. Koda watched him the whole time. The dog had been with him since the last tour. Not assigned anymore. Not official. Just there. The army had written Koda off after the explosion. Shrapnel scars along his flank. A limp that showed when he got tired. But the dog still moved like he was on duty. Still scanned corners. Still froze at certain sounds. Still remembered. Ethan reached over, resting a hand against the thick fur at Koda's neck. Warm, solid, real. Still here, huh? Koda blinked once. That was enough. Morning came slow and gray. By the time the sky lightened, Ethan had already made up his mind. Not about the house. About something simpler. He was done drifting. The county annex sat at the edge of town, a squat brick building that smelled like old paper and burnt coffee. Ethan walked in with Koda at his side, boots quiet on the tile floor. A few heads turned. Not because of him. Because of the dog. Service animal? A woman behind a folding table asked, not looking up from her clipboard. Yeah, Ethan said. It wasn't a lie anyone could prove wrong. The room was half full. Local men in worn jackets, a couple in clean coats who didn't belong, and one man, mid-40s, tailored wool coat, shoes that had never seen mud, standing near the front with his hands in his pockets like he already owned the place. Ethan clocked him without staring. You didn't stare. Auction started fast. Parcels, numbers, prices thrown out like loose change. Ethan didn't raise his hand once. Didn't plan to, until the room shifted. Next, the auctioneer said, flipping a page. Property on Hollow Ridge. Old Victorian structure. Tax delinquent, 12 years. Condition. He hesitated, then shrugged. Poor. A low ripple of laughter moved through the chairs. Haunted one, someone muttered. Condemned if anyone bothered. 15 to open, the auctioneer said, like he didn't expect anyone to answer. Ethan looked down at his hands. Calloused, scarred, still steady. $15 sat folded in his pocket. Everything left after gas, after food, after deciding there wasn't anywhere else to go. A roof. Maybe not a good one. Maybe not safe. But walls didn't care who you were. His arm went up, not fast, not hesitant. Just up. The room noticed. 15, the auctioneer said, pointing. Got 15. Anyone want to make it 20? No one moved. The man in the wool coat turned then, fully, eyes settling on Ethan, not amused, not curious, measuring, going once, silence, going twice. Koda shifted slightly, leaning closer to Ethan's leg. Sold. The gavel came down with a dull crack that echoed longer than it should have. Ethan didn't smile, didn't look around, just reached into his pocket, pulled out the worn bills, and walked to the front. The clerk slid a paper across the table. A key followed. Old brass. Heavy. You sure about this? The clerk asked quietly. Ethan took the key. I am now. Outside, the wind had picked up. Ethan stepped into it, Koda at his side, the key cold in his palm. Behind him, the man in the wool coat stood in the doorway, watching. Not laughing. Just watching. Ethan didn't turn around, but he felt it. The kind of attention you didn't forget. The kind that followed you. He walked to the truck, opened the door, and paused for half a second, just long enough for something old and buried to tighten in his chest. A roof or something else. He couldn't tell yet. Koda jumped in first. Ethan followed. And somewhere up on Hollow Ridge, a house that had been empty for 12 years waited in the cold. The road thinned the higher he drove. Pavement gave way to cracked asphalt, then gravel, then something closer to a memory of a road than an actual one. Pine trees pressed in on both sides, their branches knitting together overhead until the sky turned narrow and gray. Koda stood on the seat now, front paws braced against the dash, watching the road ahead. Yeah, Ethan muttered. Feels wrong to me, too. The truck climbed one last bend, and the house came into view. It stood alone at the top of the ridge, taller than anything around it. 3 stories of weathered wood gone pale with time. The turret leaned just slightly, enough to make the whole structure feel off balance, like it had been holding its breath too long. Boards covered most of the windows. The few that weren't stared down, dark and empty. Ethan cut the engine. Silence dropped hard. No traffic. No voices. Just wind moving through pine needles and something loose knocking faintly against the side of the house. Koda didn't move. His ears were forward, body stiff. Not fear. Not quite. Recognition, maybe. Ethan opened the door. Cold air rushed in, sharp enough to sting the lungs. Gravel crunched under his boots as he stepped out. The house didn't look haunted. It looked abandoned. There was a difference. He walked slow up the broken path, eyes tracking everything without seeming to. Roofline. Corners. Tree line. No movement. No fresh tire tracks. No footprints but his own. Koda stayed tight at his side. The front door hung slightly off its frame. The key slid in after a second try, turned harder than it should have, then gave. The door opened with a long, low groan. Dust and cold air rolled out. Ethan paused on the threshold. Listen. Nothing. He stepped inside. The floorboards creaked under his weight, but held. The entry hall stretched ahead, dim light leaking through cracks in the boarded windows. A staircase curved up to the right, its railing thick with dust. Ethan didn't move further in. Not yet. Clear left, he said under his breath, more habit than thought. Koda moved. Not fast, not hesitant, just forward. The dog slipped past him, nose low, body quiet. He checked the first doorway, then the next, moving with the same precision he'd had overseas. Angles, corners, pauses where it mattered. Ethan followed a step behind, room by room, empty. A parlor with collapsed plaster. A dining room stripped bare except for a long table pushed against one wall. A kitchen with rusted fixtures and a window that looked out into nothing but trees. No signs of anyone living here. No signs of anything living here. Still, Ethan felt it. Not fear. Wrongness. Like a map that didn't match the ground. He moved to the base of the stairs and looked up. Second floor hallway ran straight, doors on either side. Up, he said. Koda didn't go. The dog stood at the bottom step, head tilted slightly, eyes fixed upward, but he didn't climb. Ethan noticed, filed it, didn't push it. He took the first step alone. Each board complained under his weight. The sound echoed too much in the empty house. He kept his footfalls controlled, placing them near the edges where the structure held strongest. At the top, the hallway stretched longer than it should have. Ethan stopped, turned slightly, looked back down toward the entry, then forward again. Same space. But something about the proportions. Off. He walked the hall slow, touching the wall lightly with his fingertips. Old paint. Cracked in places, smooth in others where it shouldn't be. He passed 3 doors, checked each, empty rooms, same dust, same still air. At the end of the hall, the wall stopped him. Flat, plain, nothing remarkable. Except, Ethan stepped back, measured it with his eyes. From outside, the house ran longer than this. He knew it without needing numbers. Space missing. He didn't touch the wall, not yet. Instead, he turned and went back down. Koda was waiting exactly where he'd left him. Didn't like that, huh? Ethan said quietly. The dog blinked once. They spent the rest of the day making the place livable. Ethan found a corner in the front room where the floor was solid enough, cleared debris, laid out his sleeping bag. Broke apart an old chair for kindling and got a small fire going in the rusted fireplace. Smoke pulled slow but steady. Good enough. By nightfall, the temperature had dropped hard. The fire barely held it back. Ethan sat with his back to the wall, knees drawn up slightly, watching the room without looking like he was watching. Koda lay close, flank pressed against his boot. Wind pushed against the house again. That same loose metal sound somewhere outside. Clink, clink. Ethan didn't flinch this time, but his fingers tightened slightly. The fire burned low. Shadows stretched. Time passed. He didn't sleep, not really. He drifted and snapped back. At one point, a sharp crack from somewhere deeper in the house jerked him upright, heart already racing before his mind caught up. His hand moved again, same empty reach, same remembered weight that wasn't there. Just the house, he muttered. Koda was already on his feet, facing the hallway, not barking, not moving forward, just watching. Ethan followed his gaze. The darkness there felt thicker than it should have. He held still, counted, waited. Nothing came. Eventually, the tension eased just enough. Ethan leaned back against the wall again, eyes still on the hallway. "Yeah," he said quietly. "Something's not right." Koda didn't look away. Neither did he. The hallway stayed quiet. Too quiet. Ethan let the seconds stretch, counting without thinking. 5, 10, 15. No movement. No sound except the low pop of the dying fire behind him. Still, Koda didn't stand down. That mattered more than anything else. Ethan shifted his weight forward, slow enough that the floor didn't complain. His eyes never left the dark opening of the hallway. The shape of it had changed. Or maybe it hadn't. That was the problem. "Stay," he said quietly. Koda didn't move. Ethan rose to a crouch, keeping low out of habit. No light, no advantage, just angles and memory. He stepped once, then again, feeling for loose boards before committing his weight. The hallway swallowed him. Cold hit first. Not the drifting cold from broken windows, but something tighter, contained. He paused halfway up the stairs. Behind him, Koda's nails clicked once against the wood. Ethan froze. The sound echoed too sharp in the silence. He turned his head slightly. Koda wasn't at the base of the stairs anymore. The dog had moved up 3 steps without a sound, body low, shoulders tight, eyes locked past Ethan, into the 2nd floor. "Thought I told you to stay," Ethan murmured. Koda didn't blink, didn't even look at him. Ethan followed his gaze. That same stretch of hallway, that same wall at the end. But now it felt closer. He reached the top step and stopped again. Same drill. Listen, smell, feel, nothing obvious, but something underneath, like the space itself was holding its breath. Koda moved first, not fast, not hesitant, purposeful. He passed Ethan, nose low, tracking along the floorboards. Each step deliberate, like he was following a line only he could see. Ethan didn't call him back. Didn't need to. He knew that posture. Search mode. Koda moved past the first door, ignored the second, paused briefly at the third, then continued. Straight to the end of the hall, the wall. He stopped there, sat, and stared. Ethan approached slow, watching both the dog and the surface ahead. Nothing about the wall stood out at first glance. Same faded paint, same cracks running through it. But Koda didn't shift, didn't sniff, didn't scratch. Just watched. Ethan stepped closer. One more step, then another. The air changed. Not much. Just enough. He raised his hand, hesitated for half a second, then pressed his palm flat against the wall. Cold. Colder than it should have been. And there it was. A faint push of air. Barely there. Just a whisper against his skin. Ethan pulled his hand back slowly. Looked at the edges of the wall now, not the center. Measured. Counted. From the outside, that section should have extended further, at least 10, maybe 12 feet more. Enough for another room, maybe 2. But inside, nothing. Hidden space, he said under his breath. Koda's ears twitched. Ethan crouched, running his fingers along the baseboard. The wood here felt different. Less worn, less settled. Newer, or replaced. Somebody sealed it, he muttered. Koda finally moved. One step forward. He lowered his head and pressed his nose to a single point near the floor. Held it there, breathing slow. Then, without warning, he scraped. Not playful, not curious, controlled. One paw, then the other. A tight, repeated motion that sent dust drifting into the air. Ethan grabbed his collar instinctively. Koda. Easy. The dog stopped immediately, sat back, eyes locked on the same spot, waiting for a command. Ethan looked at the mark Koda had made, a thin line now visible through the dust. Straight. Too straight. Not a crack. A seam. He leaned closer, tracing it with his fingertip. The edge of a panel, maybe, or boards laid over something else. His chest tightened slightly. Not fear. Recognition. This wasn't random. This was deliberate. Whoever had done it knew what they were hiding. A flash cut through his mind. Desert heat. Concrete wall. A door where there shouldn't be one. The sound of his sergeant's voice. Don't rush it, Cole. You don't breach blind. Ethan blinked hard. The hallway snapped back into place. Koda was still there. Still watching him. Still waiting. Ethan exhaled slowly, steadying his hands. Yeah, he said quietly. I remember. He stood up, stepping back from the wall. Not tonight. Not without light. Not without knowing what was behind it. He turned and walked back down the hall. Koda stayed where he was. Ethan stopped halfway to the stairs, looked back. The dog hadn't moved. Come on, Ethan said. Koda didn't respond, just sat there, eyes fixed on the wall like it might disappear if he looked away. Ethan held his gaze for a second, then another. Finally, Koda stood, walked back, but slower this time. Reluctant. Ethan felt it. Filed it away. Back downstairs, the fire had burned to embers. The room felt smaller now, tighter. Ethan fed it another piece of broken wood, watching the flames climb back to life. Koda lay down beside him again, but not fully. One ear stayed up, facing the stairs. Ethan leaned back against the wall, staring into the fire. That seam upstairs, that air behind it, that look in Koda's eyes. He'd seen it before, in the field, right before something went wrong. Tomorrow, he said quietly. Koda didn't move, but his tail tapped the floor once, soft, like he understood. And upstairs, behind a wall that didn't belong there, something waited. Morning didn't come gently. It broke through the cracks in the boards like a dull blade, gray and cold, dragging the room into shape piece by piece. Ethan was already awake when the light reached him. Not because he'd slept enough, because he never did. His eyes had closed sometime before dawn. That was all. Koda was on his feet before Ethan moved. No stretch, no yawn. Just up, facing the stairs. Ethan sat there for a moment, watching the dog. The stiffness in Koda's posture hadn't left. If anything, it had sharpened overnight. Yeah, Ethan said quietly. Still bothering you. He pushed himself up, joints slow but steady, and crossed the room. The fire had burned out hours ago, leaving only gray ash in the hearth. The cold had crept back in and settled deep. He didn't waste time trying to warm up. Movement was warmth. He grabbed the pry bar he'd found leaning behind the kitchen door. Old steel. Heavy enough to matter. Good leverage. Koda watched him take it, then turned toward the stairs before Ethan said a word. They went up together this time. No hesitation. Each step creaked under their weight, but Ethan placed his boots carefully, near the edges, avoiding the softer center boards. Koda moved ahead again, quieter than the house itself. At the top, the hallway felt different in daylight. Not safer, just clearer. Dust hung in the air, caught in the thin light slipping through gaps in the boards. The wall at the end stood the same as it had in the dark. Plain, silent. Wrong. Ethan stopped a few feet away. Didn't rush it. You don't breach blind, he muttered again. He crouched instead, running his hand along the floorboards where Koda had scratched the night before. The thin line was still there, cutting straight through the dust. Too clean, too deliberate. He tapped the wood lightly with the metal end of the pry bar. Solid. Then he shifted a few inches and tapped again. Hollow. The sound came back different, deeper, contained. Ethan stilled, tapped once more. Same spot. Same hollow answer. Koda leaned in, nose hovering just above the seam, breathing slow and steady. "Yeah," Ethan said under his breath. "You're not guessing." He slid the flat end of the pry bar into the seam. For a second, nothing happened. Then the metal bit in. Wood groaned. Ethan applied pressure slowly, controlling the force instead of forcing it. The board resisted at first, old nails holding on, but then it gave with a sharp crack that echoed down the hallway. Koda flinched. Just a fraction. Then steadied. Ethan paused immediately. Listened. Nothing moved. No footsteps. No shift in the house beyond the settling of disturbed dust. He pried again. The first board came loose. It peeled back with a long, dry sound, revealing a darker layer beneath. Not plaster. More wood. Newer. Laid across in a tight, uniform pattern. Someone had sealed this on purpose. Ethan's jaw tightened slightly. He worked the second board free, then a third. Each one came easier than the last, the resistance weakening as the structure gave way. Dust thickened in the air, catching in his throat. But he ignored it. Koda stayed close, tracking every movement. Not excited. Focused. The way he'd been on patrol. Ethan pulled the fourth board free and stopped. There it was. The edge of a frame. Faint at first. Then unmistakable. A door. Set into the wall. Hidden behind layers meant to erase it. Ethan sat back on his heels, breathing slow. Someone really didn't want this found, he said. Koda didn't respond. His eyes were locked on the center of that hidden door. Ethan stood, brushing dust from his hands, and stepped closer. The door itself was plain, no handle visible at first glance, just a slight indentation where one might have been, worn down by time or covered over. He ran his fingers along the surface. Cold. Colder than the surrounding wall. And then, there it was again. That faint push of air, not from the cracks, from behind it. A steady, almost imperceptible current. The room beyond wasn't sealed tight. It was breathing. Ethan pulled his hand back slowly. His pulse had picked up, but his movements didn't show it. He leaned his head slightly, listening. Nothing. No movement. No sound. But the air. The air said there was space. He reached for the edge of the door. Stopped. His fingers hovered just short of touching it. A flicker crossed his mind. Concrete walls. A door wired wrong. A teammate reaching for it. Ethan blinked hard, forcing the memory down. Not the same. Different place. Different wars. Still. He stepped back. 2 full steps. "Koda," he said quietly. The dog didn't move. "Back." Koda hesitated, then obeyed. Slow. Reluctant. Ethan nodded once. Good. He circled slightly, checking the edges of the frame. No visible wiring, no obvious traps. But this wasn't the kind of place you assumed safe. He tapped the door lightly with the pry bar. Solid. Heavy. Whatever was behind it wasn't close to the surface. He lowered the bar, looked at the door one more time, then turned away. Not yet. Koda's ears twitched. Ethan headed back down the hall without another word. Behind him, the hidden door stayed silent. But the air behind it moved. Slow. Steady. like something waiting its turn. Ethan didn't go back upstairs that afternoon. He kept moving. That was the rule. When something sat wrong in your head, you didn't sit with it. You worked. You fixed what you could touch. The front door came first. It didn't close right. The frame swollen from years of weather. He pulled it off its hinges, set it across two broken chairs, and ran the edge of the pry bar along the warped wood. Shavings curled off in thin strips, pale against the gray floor. Koda lay a few feet away, watching the stairwell instead of Ethan. Always the stairs. "Not helping much," Ethan said. Koda's ears flicked, but he didn't look away. By late afternoon, the door fit better. Not perfect, but it caught the latch. That was enough for now. Ethan stepped outside to test it. The air had shifted. Colder. He noticed it right away. Wind moved through the trees, low and steady, carrying the faint scent of something mechanical, oil maybe, not from his truck. He turned his head slightly, listened. Engine. Far off at first, then closer. Ethan didn't move from the doorway. Koda stood now, silent, body tight. The engine climbed the ridge slowly, tires crunching over gravel that hadn't seen traffic in years. It didn't hesitate at the bend. Didn't slow near the broken fence. Whoever it was, they knew exactly where they were going. The truck came into view a moment later. Black. Clean. Not a scratch on it. It stopped just short of the path. Engine idling. Then it cut. Silence dropped again. The driver's door opened. The man from the auction stepped out. Same coat. Same posture. Like the cold didn't reach him the same way it reached everything else. Ethan stayed where he was. Didn't step forward. Didn't step back. Koda moved half a step ahead, placing himself just off Ethan's left side. Not aggressive, but ready. The man noticed. His eyes flicked down once, then back up. "Nice place," he said, voice even. "Got potential." Ethan didn't answer. The man walked closer, boots clean against the dirt. He stopped a few feet short of the porch, hands still in his coat pockets. "Marcus Hale," he said. "I think we saw each other this morning." Ethan gave a small nod. Ethan. Marcus glanced past him, into the dark interior of the house. "You move in already?" "Working on it." Marcus smiled slightly. Not friendly, not unfriendly, just practiced. "That house has been sitting empty a long time," he said. "Most folks around here think it should have stayed that way." Ethan leaned one shoulder against the doorframe. Most folks didn't buy it. Marcus let that sit for a second. Then he nodded once. "Fair enough." He shifted his weight, looking out toward the tree line, then back at Ethan again. "I'll get to it," he said. "I'm interested in that property." Ethan didn't react. Marcus continued. "My company's been putting together parcels around this ridge for the last couple years. Infrastructure, long-term investment. That lot, your lot, is the last piece I need to complete the plan." Koda's ears twitched. Ethan watched Marcus without blinking. "And?" Ethan said. Marcus reached into his coat, pulled out a folded envelope, and held it out slightly, not close enough to touch. $10,000, he said. "Cash. Today. You sign the deed back over, we handle the paperwork, you walk away with a profit." The wind moved through the trees again. Ethan didn't look at the envelope, didn't reach for it, not selling. Marcus's expression didn't change. 15,000. Ethan shook his head once. Marcus studied him more closely now. 20, he said. "You paid $15 this morning. I'm offering you 20,000 before sunset. That's not a negotiation. That's me saving you time. Ethan pushed off the doorframe and stepped down onto the porch. Koda moved with him, still silent, still watching. Not selling, Ethan said again. Marcus exhaled slowly, like he'd expected that answer, but hoped for a different one. All right, he said. Then let me explain the situation a little clearer. The tone shifted. Not louder, just flatter. That structure isn't up to code, Marcus said. Hasn't been for years. Roofs compromised, foundations questionable, no utilities, no inspections on record. Ethan didn't interrupt. County can condemn it, Marcus went on. Soon as someone files the paperwork. Once that happens, they'll schedule a demolition. Costs get assigned to the owner. He let the word hang there. Owner. That's you now, Marcus said. Koda let out a low sound. Not a bark. A warning. Marcus's eyes flicked down again, just for a moment, then back to Ethan. I can make all of that disappear, he said. You take the money, I take the liability, everybody walks away clean. Ethan tilted his head slightly. You came all the way up here to help me out? He asked. Marcus smiled again. Same practiced curve. I came up here because I don't like loose ends, he said. The wind picked up. Loose wood somewhere on the house knocked once. Then again. Clink, clink. Ethan didn't turn his head. Marcus continued, quieter now. You're not from here, he said. No ties. No support system. That place. He nodded toward the house. It's going to cost you more than you think. Ethan held his gaze. Everything does. For the first time, Marcus paused longer than he intended. Then he straightened slightly, adjusting his coat. Think about it, he said. I'll be back tomorrow. Offer won't go down. He turned and walked back to the truck without another word. Didn't rush. Didn't look back. The engine started. Gravel shifted under the tires as the truck turned and headed back down the ridge. Ethan stood there until the sound disappeared, then a little longer. Koda stayed beside him, eyes still on the road long after the truck was gone. Finally, Ethan spoke. He knows something. Koda didn't move. Ethan turned his head slowly, looking back into the house, up the stairs, toward the wall, the hidden door, the air behind it, then back to the road again. He's not buying land, Ethan said quietly. Koda's tail gave a single, slow movement. Ethan nodded once. Yeah. He stepped back inside, pulling the door shut behind him. This time, he made sure it latched. The sound of the lock settling into place echoed louder than it should have. Ethan stood there a second longer, hand still on the handle, listening. Nothing outside. Nothing inside. Just the house. He turned slowly. Koda was already halfway to the stairs. No hesitation now. Whatever line had been crossed, it was behind them. All right, Ethan said quietly. We're doing this. He grabbed the pry bar again, testing the weight in his hand. The metal felt colder than before. Or maybe his grip was tighter. They moved up together. No pause at the bottom this time. No hesitation at the top. The hallway stretched ahead, pale in the thin daylight, dust drifting in slow patterns. The wall at the end waited exactly where it had been, unchanged, unmoving, but no longer ignored. Koda went straight to it, stopped, sat. Eyes locked. Ethan stepped beside him. He didn't check the other rooms, didn't scan the corners. For the first time since stepping into this house, he committed. He slid the pry bar into the seam where the boards had already been loosened. Stand by, he muttered. Koda shifted back half a step. Ethan pulled. The next board came free faster, the nails screaming as they tore loose. Dust burst into the air, thick and choking, but he didn't stop. Another pull, another crack. Wood splintered, giving way piece by piece. The rhythm built, controlled, deliberate, not rushing, but not hesitating either. Board after board fell away, revealing more of the hidden door beneath. The frame became clearer now, solid, reinforced, built to last, not meant to be found. Ethan stepped back, chest rising a little faster. The door stood fully exposed, no handle on the outside. Just a recessed panel, worn smooth by time. Koda let out a low breath. Ethan noticed. "Yeah," he said. "Same thing I'm thinking." He crouched again, examining the edges. No visible lock, no hinges on this side. Then he saw it. A small notch near the center. Subtle. Easy to miss. He pressed his fingers into it. Nothing. Then he shifted his grip, applied pressure sideways. A click, soft, almost polite. Ethan froze instantly. Every muscle locked. Wait. Count. Listen. No sound followed. No movement. Just that same faint current of air slipping through the cracks. He eased his hand away, looked at Koda. The dog was standing now, not backing away, not advancing. Waiting. Ethan nodded once. All right. He pressed again. This time the panel gave. Slow, heavy. The door shifted inward with a low, controlled movement. No creak, no groan. Just a deep, steady release. That alone was wrong. A door sealed for years should have fought back. This one didn't. Ethan stepped aside immediately, not crossing the threshold. "Clear it," he said quietly. Koda moved, straight through the opening, gone into the dark. Ethan stayed where he was, counted. 1, 2, 3, 4. No sound. No return. His jaw tightened. "Report," he muttered under his breath. Silence. Then, a soft shuffle from inside. Koda reappeared, calm, no alarm, no tension. He walked back to Ethan's side and sat. Ethan exhaled slowly. "Clear," he said. He picked up the small lantern he'd brought up earlier, glass cracked but usable, and struck a match. The flame flared briefly, then settled as he lit the wick. Warm light pushed against the darkness. Not far, but enough. Ethan lifted it and stepped forward. Across the threshold, the air inside felt different, still, dry, undisturbed. Like time had stopped in here and forgotten to start again. The room opened wider than he expected, low ceiling, sloped slightly toward the far end. Dust lay thick across everything, but nothing had collapsed. Nothing had shifted. This wasn't decay. This was preservation. Shelves lined the walls, boxes, dozens of them, all the same size, all arranged with precision. Ethan stepped further in, boots leaving the first marks in what looked like years. Koda stayed close, head low, scanning. Not reacting. Not yet. Ethan raised the lantern higher. The light moved across the shelves, across the boxes, and then he stopped. Each box had a label, handwritten. Names, coordinates, dates, short notations, clean, organized, deliberate. Ethan moved closer to the nearest shelf. Read one, then another. Latitude, longitude, grid references, Old formatting. Military. His grip tightened slightly on the lantern. "This isn't storage," he said under his breath. Koda's ears twitched. Ethan scanned the rest of the room. A table sat near the far wall. On it, maps, folded, stacked, marked with ink and pins. Beside them, a ledger, thick, worn, used. Ethan stepped toward it slowly. Each movement measured, each breath controlled. The floor didn't creak here, didn't shift. Solid. He reached the table, set the lantern down, opened the ledger. The pages inside were filled. Names, locations, transfers, movements, decades old. Some entries newer than others, patterns forming without explanation. Ethan flipped a page, then another. His pulse had started to climb. Not from fear, from recognition. This wasn't random. This was a system, and systems didn't exist without purpose. Behind him, Koda stiffened. A low sound built in his chest. Not loud, but sharp. Ethan froze instantly. Didn't turn. Didn't move. "Outside?" he whispered. Koda didn't answer. His gaze was fixed toward the door they'd come through, toward the hallway, toward the world beyond this hidden room. Ethan closed the ledger slowly. The air in the room felt heavier now. Not from the dust, from something else. He picked up the lantern again, listened. There it was. Faint, but real. Gravel shifting, far below, on the road. Someone was coming back. Ethan didn't move right away. Movement got you seen. Stillness bought time. He stood in the hidden room, lantern light steady in his grip, while the faint sound of gravel shifted again below, closer this time. Tires climbing the ridge, slow and deliberate. Koda's body tightened beside him. Not panic, alert. Ethan closed the ledger carefully, fingers pressing the cover flat, as if it mattered how quietly knowledge could be put away. "Lights out," he whispered. He pinched the flame. Darkness swallowed the room instantly. For a second, there was nothing. Then, shapes. Faint outlines as his eyes adjusted. The doorway, the slope of the ceiling, Koda's silhouette, rigid and waiting. Ethan stepped back from the table, every movement measured, controlled. He didn't rush for the door, didn't bolt. He listened. The engine below cut. Silence. Too clean. "They're here," he breathed. Koda shifted closer, brushing against his leg. Ethan placed a hand briefly on the dog's neck. "Stay quiet." He moved toward the doorway, stopping just short of stepping into the hall. He leaned slightly, enough to see the edge of the corridor without exposing himself. Nothing yet. But the house carried sound. A faint creak below. Then another. Not wind. Weight. Boots. Ethan pulled back instantly. They were inside. His chest tightened. Not fear, not exactly. Recognition. This was contact. Different terrain. Same rules. He dropped low, crouching beside the wall, and motioned Koda down with a small gesture. The dog obeyed without sound. Another creak. Closer now. Ethan closed his eyes for half a second, mapping the structure in his head. Front door. Entry hall. Stairs to the right. They'd come up slow. Careful. Not random. They know the place, he thought, or they knew what to look for. Ethan's gaze shifted to the hidden room behind him. The shelves, the boxes, the ledger. Whatever this was, it mattered. Enough for someone to come back. Enough to risk being seen. A shadow moved across the hallway outside. Ethan froze. The faintest outline passed the doorway, paused, then continued. Heavy steps. Measured. A second set followed. 2 of them. Koda's ears flattened slightly. Ethan placed a hand gently against his shoulder. Steady. The footsteps moved further down the hall, past the hidden door, toward the end wall. Ethan's jaw tightened. They were checking, searching. One of them spoke. Low. Nothing here. The voice carried just enough. Another answered, quieter. Check the rest. Ethan stayed perfectly still. Every instinct told him to act, to move, to take control. But that wasn't the play. Not yet. The footsteps turned, moved back down the hall, toward the stairs, then stopped. Right outside the hidden doorway. Ethan's pulse hit harder once, then steadied. A hand brushed the wall outside. A soft knock. Testing. Ethan didn't breathe. The second man shifted behind the first. You hear that? The first one whispered. Just the house, the other said. Silence stretched, long enough to break weaker men. Ethan held it. Koda didn't move, didn't even shift his weight. Then, the hand dropped. Boots turned. The steps moved away. Down the stairs. Each one fading slower than the last. Ethan counted them out. 1, 2, 3. Until the sound was gone. He didn't move. Not yet. Not until... The engine started again outside. Gravel shifted. Tires turned. The sound carried down the ridge and away. Only then did Ethan exhale. Slow. Controlled. He leaned his head back against the wall, just for a second. Koda lifted his head, ears still forward. They didn't find it, Ethan whispered. The dog looked at him, then back toward the doorway. Ethan nodded once. Yeah. Not yet. He pushed himself to his feet and stepped out into the hallway. The air felt different now, disturbed, not quiet anymore. The dust had shifted where boots had passed. Fresh marks across the floorboards, clear as a trail. Ethan followed them to the top of the stairs, looked down. The front door stood closed, but the latch wasn't set. They'd left it that way on purpose, a message. Ethan's eyes hardened slightly. Not random, he muttered. Koda came up beside him. Ethan turned back toward the hidden room, toward the door that didn't belong, toward the system hidden behind it. They knew where to look, he said. Koda's tail gave a slow, single movement. Ethan nodded. Which means we're already late. He stepped back into the room, this time without hesitation. The shelves, the boxes, the ledger, all of it meant something. All of it connected to whatever had just walked through his house like they had a claim to it. Ethan picked up the lantern again, struck a match. The flame flared back to life. He opened the ledger once more. This time, he didn't just read, he studied. Because whatever this place was, it wasn't a house, it was a map, and someone else was already trying to erase it. Ethan turned another page. Coordinates, dates, short entries, clean, precise. No wasted words. Transfer confirmed. Asset moved. Hold until clearance. Not civilian language. Not random. Structured. He flipped faster now, scanning patterns instead of lines. Same format repeating across decades. Same handwriting evolving but never changing its purpose. A system that had survived longer than it should have. Koda's head snapped up. Ethan didn't look at him. Didn't need to. He heard it too. Closer this time. Not the road. The house. A soft shift. Wood under weight. Not upstairs. Below. Ethan closed the ledger instantly and blew out the lantern again. Darkness dropped like a curtain. He crouched low, one hand resting lightly against Koda's shoulder. "Contact," he whispered. Koda's body went still. Not tense. Ready. The sound came again. A slow step across the floor below. Then another. Not searching this time. Moving with intent. Ethan's jaw tightened. They came back. No engine this time. No warning. They'd cut it lower on the ridge. Walked the rest. Smarter. Quieter. He shifted his weight, moving toward the doorway of the hidden room. Each step placed carefully. Controlled. Koda stayed tight against him. At the threshold, Ethan paused. Listened. The intruder below moved toward the stairs. Not rushing. Not hesitant. Confident. That was worse. Ethan slid into the hallway without a sound, keeping low. The light from the boarded windows barely touched the floor now. Shadows stretched longer. The first step creaked below. Then another. Coming up. Ethan moved fast, but silent. He reached the top of the stairs and slipped back into the shadow beside the wall, just out of sight from anyone coming up. Koda mirrored him. No command needed. The steps climbed. 1, 2, 3. Ethan slowed his breathing. Heart steady, hands empty, but ready. The figure appeared at the top of the stairs. Dark jacket, gloves, face partially covered. Not Marcus. Different man. The intruder stepped onto the second floor, pausing just long enough to listen. Ethan watched from the shadow. Distance, 6 feet. Angle, off-center. No weapon visible. Didn't mean there wasn't one. The man moved forward. Toward the end of the hall. Toward the wall. Ethan's eyes narrowed. He knows. Koda's muscles tensed beside him. The intruder reached the end of the hall. Stopped. Ran his hand along the wall. Exactly where Ethan had found the seam. No hesitation. No searching. Just confirmation. Ethan moved. 2 silent steps forward. Closing distance. Koda followed. Then broke. A low growl ripped from his chest before Ethan could stop it. The man spun. Fast. Too fast. Hand going inside his jacket. Ethan lunged. Shoulder driving forward, slamming into the man's chest before he could draw on whatever he was reaching for. They hit the wall hard, breath knocking out of both of them. The intruder twisted, trying to break free. Ethan locked him down, driving him sideways into the floor. Koda was on him instantly. Not attacking. Blocking. Positioning himself between the man's free arm and Ethan. A shield. The intruder fought harder now, elbow driving back, catching Ethan in the ribs. Pain flared sharp, but Ethan didn't release. He shifted his weight, pinning the man's arm. "Don't," Ethan said, voice low. The man didn't listen. His free hand came up. Koda snapped forward. Not full bite. A warning strike. Teeth grazed the man's sleeve, but enough to stop him. For half a second, everything froze. Then the man went still, breathing hard. Ethan leaned closer. "Who sent you?" he asked. No answer. Just a tight jaw behind the mask. Koda didn't move, didn't blink. The man's eyes flicked toward the end of the hall, toward the hidden door. Ethan saw it. That glance, that confirmation. "You're not here to steal," Ethan said quietly. Still no answer. But the silence said enough. The man shifted suddenly, Not attacking. Reaching. He grabbed something from his pocket and threw it toward Ethan's face. Ethan turned instinctively. A flash. Bright. White. His vision blew out for a split second. The man twisted free. Ethan lunged again, but missed. Footsteps pounded down the stairs. Fast. Retreat. Koda bolted after him. No! Koda! Ethan shouted. Too late. A crash echoed from below. Then, a sharp yelp. It cut through everything. Ethan's chest tightened hard. He was already moving. Down the stairs, two at a time, vision clearing just enough to track movement. The front door slammed open. Cold air rushed in. The intruder was already outside, running. Koda staggered just inside the doorway. Ethan dropped beside him instantly. Hey, easy. Koda's breathing was fast. One front leg lifted slightly off the ground. Not broken, but hit, hard. Ethan's eyes flicked outside. The man was gone. Into the trees. Gone. Ethan looked back at Koda, ran his hands along the dog's side, checking quickly. No blood, no deep wound. But the leg. Strained. Maybe worse. Koda tried to stand fully. Wavered. Then steadied. Still ready. Still facing the door. Ethan placed a hand firmly against his shoulder. Stand down. Koda held position a second longer, then slowly lowered himself. But his eyes stayed on the trees. Ethan followed that gaze. The ridge was quiet again. Too quiet. He exhaled slowly, the tension draining just enough to think. They're not guessing anymore, he said. Koda didn't move. Ethan looked back up toward the second floor, toward the wall, toward the hidden room. They know exactly what's here. And now so did he. Ethan didn't rush. He closed the front door first. Slow, careful. This time he didn't just latch it. He dragged a broken chair across the floor and wedged it under the handle. Not strong, not permanent, but enough to buy seconds. Seconds mattered. He turned back to Koda. The dog was still watching the door, breathing tight but controlled. One front leg hovered just slightly off the ground. Ethan crouched beside him. Let me see. Koda didn't pull away. Ethan ran his hands along the leg again, slower this time. Muscle strain. No break. No blood. You're lucky, he muttered. Koda blinked once. Still alert. Still tracking. Ethan rested his forehead briefly against the dog's neck, a habit he didn't think about. Stay with me. Koda shifted closer. That was answer enough. Ethan stood, looked up the stairs. The house had changed. Before, it had been wrong. Now it was exposed. He moved back upstairs without hesitation, each step faster than before, but still controlled. At the top, the hallway felt smaller, like it had been opened up and couldn't close again. Ethan didn't slow down. He went straight to the hidden room, stepped inside. Lantern lit again. Quick strike, steady flame. The shelves, the boxes, the ledger, all of it still there, untouched, but not safe. Ethan moved to the table and flipped the ledger open again, this time going straight to the back pages. Older entries, less frequent, more specific. Then he found it. A set of coordinates marked differently, not just written, boxed, underlined, repeated, same numbers across multiple pages, cross-referenced. His eyes narrowed. Primary site, he murmured. Koda shifted behind him. Ethan looked up. The room, the layout. Something else didn't match. He turned slowly, scanning the floor this time instead of the walls. There, near the far end, a section of boards slightly darker than the rest. Subtle, easy to miss, unless you were looking for it. Ethan stepped closer, crouched, tapped the wood lightly. Solid. Then shifted a few inches. Tapped again. Hollow. He exhaled once. Of course. Koda moved beside him, nose hovering just above the seam. No scratching this time. No digging. Just watching. Waiting. Ethan slid the pry bar under the edge. Applied pressure. The board didn't resist like the wall had. It lifted. Clean. Deliberate. Designed to be opened. Ethan pulled it free. Set it aside. Beneath it, steel. A plate, flush with the floor. No rust, no decay. Maintained. His pulse kicked once, harder. He ran his fingers along the edge, found the latch. Hidden, precise. He hesitated, just for a second, then pulled. The steel plate lifted with a low, controlled weight. Heavy, balanced, not improvised, built. Cold air rushed up from below, different from the rest of the house. Drier. Still. Ethan raised the lantern and leaned over the opening. A ladder. Metal. Descending into darkness. Koda let out a low sound. Not fear. Recognition again. Ethan nodded once. Yeah, he said quietly. Same feeling. He swung the lantern slightly. The light dropped into the shaft. Caught edges. Concrete walls. Clean lines. Not a basement. Not storage. Something else. Ethan set the lantern down and reached for the ladder. Then stopped. Listened. Nothing. No movement outside. No return. Still. He moved like it could happen any second. One hand on the ladder. Tested it. Solid. He started down. Koda followed immediately. Even injured. Didn't hesitate. Halfway down, the air shifted again. Cooler. Denser. Ethan reached the bottom. Concrete floor. No dust. No decay. Preserved. He stepped off the ladder. Raised the lantern. The room opened around him. Not large, but precise. Walls lined with reinforced shelving. Metal cases. Sealed containers. And in the center, a vault. Not hidden. Not disguised. Placed. Intentional. Ethan approached slowly. Each step echoing slightly. The vault door was thick steel, edges clean, hinges intact. No rust, no damage. Still functional, still waiting. He ran his hand across the surface. Cold, heavy, real. Koda stood beside him, body angled toward the door, ears forward. Ethan found the handle, turned it. It moved, smooth, too smooth. He pulled. The door opened. Inside, light hit metal, stacks, bars, documents, cases filled with sealed envelopes, gold, paper, ownership, control. Ethan stood there, lantern shaking just slightly in his grip. Jesus, he breathed. Not a guess, not a rumor, not a story. $300 million, at least. Maybe more. But that wasn't the worst part. He stepped closer, picked up one of the folders, opened it. Legal documents, rights, claims, land, assets tied to names he didn't recognize, but dates that matched the ledger upstairs. The same system, the same network. This wasn't hidden wealth. It was buried power. Koda shifted suddenly, sharp. Ethan looked at him. The dog wasn't watching the vault. He was watching the ladder. Ethan turned, listened. Nothing. Then faint. Above them. A floorboard. Ethan's chest tightened. "They're not done," he said quietly. Koda stepped forward, putting himself between Ethan and the ladder. Despite the injury, despite everything, still first. Ethan looked back once at the open vault, then up toward the dark shaft. "They're coming back for this," he said. Koda didn't move. Ethan nodded. "Which means we don't have time." And for the first time, this wasn't about surviving the house. It was about surviving what the house was hiding. Ethan moved first. Not up, not out. He stepped back from the vault and shut it. Slow, controlled. The steel door sealed with a heavy click that seemed too loud for the space. "Leave it," he muttered. "We're not carrying that fight today." Koda didn't argue, still positioned between Ethan and the ladder, still watching. Ethan grabbed the ledger from the table near the ladder and tucked it under his arm. "Light enough, important enough. The rest, too big to move, too dangerous to touch without a plan." "Up," he said. Koda climbed first, favoring his leg but not slowing much. Ethan followed, lantern swinging low, shadows crawling up the concrete walls. Halfway up, that sound again. A board shifting above, closer. Ethan stopped instantly, listened, breathing shallow. Koda froze too. No growl, no warning, just stillness. Then, a voice, faint, from the hallway. One man, not the same tone as before. "Check the back room again." Ethan's jaw tightened. They split, he thought. Smart. He moved again. Faster now. They reached the top of the ladder. Ethan eased the steel plate back into place, lowering it without a sound. The wooden board followed, pressed down just enough to hide the seam. No time to make it perfect. Just enough. He grabbed the lantern, blew it out. Dark again. Footsteps in the hallway. Close. Ethan moved to the side of the hidden door, flattening himself against the wall. Koda mirrored him, body low, breath controlled. The steps stopped right outside. Silence. Then, a hand brushed the door. Ethan's pulse didn't change, didn't spike. It narrowed. Focused. "Something's off," the man said. A second voice answered. "That old place is all off." The first man didn't move, didn't step away. He stayed there, right outside the hidden door. Ethan could hear his breathing now, close enough to measure, close enough to act. Koda's muscles coiled. Ethan's hand hovered just above his shoulder. Wait. Wait. Then, the man stepped back. Boots creaked. He turned. Walked away. Ethan didn't move. Didn't breathe deeper. Didn't relax, not until the front door below opened, then closed again. Then silence. Real silence this time. Ethan counted it out. 10, 20, 30. Nothing returned. He exhaled slowly. "Gone," he whispered. Koda lifted his head. Ethan stepped into the hallway, moved to the stairs, checked. Empty. Front door closed. Chair still wedged. But the latch had been tested. Again. Ethan walked back upstairs, straight to the hidden room. This time he didn't hesitate. He lit the lantern, set it on the table, opened the ledger again. Faster now. Searching. Patterns. Names. Connections. His eyes moved across the entries until something clicked. A name repeated. Over and over. Different years. Different locations. Same signature at the bottom of certain pages. Initials. M.H. Ethan froze. Looked at it again. Then again. Marcus Hale. He flipped back further. Older entries. Same initials. Earlier handwriting. Not Marcus. Someone else, family. Lineage. Ethan's jaw tightened. This wasn't his idea, he said quietly. Koda shifted beside him. Ethan traced the entries with his finger. Transfers. Assets. Ownership. All tied to that same chain of initials. Marcus hadn't just found this place. He'd inherited it. Or something close enough. Which meant he knows exactly what's down there. Koda's ears flicked. Ethan nodded once. Yeah. He kept flipping. Faster now. Then he found it. An entry. Different. Longer. Detailed. Coordinates. Same as the vault. Same as the boxed pages. But with something else. A note. Short. Precise. Primary consolidation complete. Holdings secured pending retrieval by Hale's successor. Ethan stared at it. The word sat heavy. Successor. He leaned back slightly. Breath slow, controlled. Not buying land, he murmured. Reclaiming it. Koda let out a low breath. Ethan looked at him. That vault? He nodded toward the floor. That's not abandoned. Koda didn't move. Ethan closed the ledger. The pieces were lining up now. Too clean. Too fast. Marcus hadn't come to negotiate. He'd come to take back something that already had his name on it, and Ethan had just stepped in the middle of it. He looked toward the stairs again, then back to the hidden room, then down, toward where the vault waited below. They're not going to stop, he said. Koda's tail moved once. Slow. Ethan nodded. Good. He picked up the ledger again, held it tighter this time. Because neither are we. Outside, the wind shifted, and far down the ridge, an engine started again. Ethan didn't move toward the window this time. Didn't check. Didn't confirm. He already knew. They're not leaving, he said quietly. Koda stayed beside him, weight slightly shifted off the injured leg, but still upright, still ready. Ethan looked down at the ledger in his hands, then toward the floor, toward the vault beneath them. $300 million. Enough to disappear. Enough to start over anywhere. Enough to never sleep in a truck again. His fingers tightened slightly on the worn cover. Koda shifted. Not toward the stairs. Toward him. Ethan glanced down. The dog's eyes weren't on the door. They were on him. Watching. Waiting. The same way he had back in Kandahar. Before every patrol. Before every breach. Not asking. Just staying. Ethan exhaled slowly. He turned and walked back into the hidden room. Not rushed. Not hesitant. Just decided. He knelt by the loose floorboard and pulled it up again. The steel hatch waited beneath, silent and solid. Koda stepped closer. Closer than before. Ethan rested his hand on the dog's neck. You don't get a vote, he said quietly. Koda didn't move. Ethan nodded once. Yeah. Thought so. He opened the hatch again. Climbed down. The vault room greeted him the same way. Cold, still untouched. But it felt different now. Not discovery. Weight. Responsibility. Ethan stepped to the vault and opened it again. The metal swung wide. Gold caught the lantern light. Paper. Power. He reached in and pulled out a stack of documents instead of the bars. Ownership papers. Transfer records. Names. Not just Marcus. Other names. Old ones. Buried ones. People who had never been meant to see daylight again. Ethan flipped through them slowly. Every page was a lever. Every signature a weapon. He could use this. Expose it. Break Marcus Hale. End whatever system had been running through this house for decades. Or he could take the money. Disappear. No fight. No risk. Just gone. His breath slowed. The room faded for a second. Sand. Heat. A radio crackling in his ear. A voice shouting coordinates. Then silence. After. The kind that stayed. Ethan closed his eyes. Just for a moment. Saw faces. Men who didn't make it back. Men who didn't get a second chance to decide what came next. He opened his eyes again, looked at the vault, then at the ladder above, then back at the papers in his hands. Koda shifted behind him. Ethan didn't turn, but he felt it. The dog had followed him down, even injured, even when it hurt. Still here, still choosing. Every time. Ethan let out a slow breath. "All right," he said. Not loud, but final. He placed the gold back where it was. Didn't touch it again. He took the documents instead. A handful. Enough. Not everything. Never everything. Then he closed the vault. This time, it stayed closed. He climbed back up the ladder. Koda waited at the top. Sat. Watching him. Ethan pulled himself up into the hidden room and sealed the hatch again. Covered it. Reset the board. As if it had never been touched. He picked up the ledger. Tucked the documents inside. Then stood there a moment longer. The room felt different now. Not just a discovery. A line. He stepped back into the hallway. Moved down the stairs. Each step steady. Measured. The front door waited at the bottom. The chair still wedged under the handle. The wind outside stronger now. Carrying that engine's sound closer again. Ethan stopped at the door. Koda beside him. He rested his hand on the wood. Not opening it yet. "Last chance," he said quietly. Not to Koda. To himself. Silence answered. Then, he pulled the chair aside, unlocked the latch, and opened the door. Cold air rushed in. The truck sat at the edge of the path again. Engine running. Marcus Hale stepped out. Same coat. Same calm. But this time, no smile. Ethan stepped onto the porch. Koda beside him. Documents in his hand. Not hidden, not anymore. Marcus looked at the papers, then at Ethan. Something shifted behind his eyes. Not surprise. Recognition. "You found it," Marcus said. Ethan didn't answer. Marcus took a step closer. "Then you understand," he continued. "That house isn't yours." Ethan held his ground. "Not yours either," he said. Marcus's gaze hardened slightly. "You don't know what you're holding." Ethan lifted the papers just enough. Enough. Silence stretched between them. Wind cutting through it. Marcus exhaled slowly. "Walk away," he said. You don't want this fight. Ethan looked at him, then at the trees beyond, then back again. No, he said. Not loud, not angry. Just done. Koda shifted forward half a step. Marcus noticed. Ethan didn't. Then you're making a mistake, Marcus said. Ethan shook his head once. Already did, he said. A pause. Then, I bought the house. The wind picked up again, harder this time. Marcus stood there for a long moment, then nodded once. Slow, like something had just been decided. All right, he said. He turned, walked back to his truck, didn't look back this time. The engine revved, gravel shifted, the truck disappeared down the ridge again. Ethan stood there until the sound faded, then a little longer. Koda sat beside him, silent. Ethan looked down at the dog, at the injured leg, at the way he still stayed. Every time. Yeah, Ethan said quietly. Me too. He turned back toward the house, toward the stairs, toward everything waiting inside. The choice had been made, and there was no going back. The house felt different that night. Not quieter, not safer. Just awake. Ethan moved through it without rushing, checking each room the way he always did. Corners first, windows second, doors last. Not because he expected someone inside, because routine kept the noise in his head from getting too loud. Koda followed, slower now, favoring the leg but refusing to stay behind. Every few steps, he'd pause, listen, then move again, still working, still on duty. Ethan stopped at the base of the stairs, looked up. The second floor didn't feel like a threat anymore. It felt like a responsibility. He climbed, one step at a time. Koda stayed close. At the top, Ethan didn't hesitate. He walked straight to the hidden room, pushed the door open, and stepped inside. The air hadn't changed. Still dry, still preserved, still holding everything it had held before him. Ethan set the lantern on the table and lit it. The glow spread across the shelves, catching the edges of the boxes, the lines of the maps, the worn spine of the ledger. He opened it again, not searching this time. Reading, understanding. Names weren't just names anymore. They were people. Transactions weren't just lines. They were lives moved, controlled, hidden. And at the center of it, that vault, that system, that legacy Marcus Hale had tried to reclaim. Ethan closed the book slowly, then reached into his jacket and pulled out the documents he'd taken. He spread them across the table. Land deeds, ownership transfers, shell companies layered over decades. Every page told the same story in a different way. Power, buried, protected, passed down. Until now. Koda shifted beside him. Ethan glanced down. The dog had lowered himself to the floor, but his head stayed up, eyes still tracking the doorway, still guarding. Ethan nodded once. Almost done, he said quietly. He gathered the papers again, stacked them, organized them. Not like someone handling money, like someone preparing evidence. Outside, the wind picked up again. But this time, it didn't feel empty. It carried something else. Distance, time, change. Ethan stood there a moment longer, then turned, walked out of the hidden room, down the hallway, down the stairs, into the front room. The fire was dead again. Cold had settled back in, but it didn't matter the same way anymore. He crossed to the window, pulled one of the boards loose, Let the outside light spill in. Gray. Open. Real. Koda pushed himself up and came to stand beside him. Ethan rested a hand on his neck. "You did good," he said. Koda leaned slightly into the touch. "Not much. Just enough." Ethan looked out over the ridge. The town sat far below, small and distant, disconnected, like it belonged to a different world. He could leave, drive down that road, disappear, take what he'd found and never look back. No one would stop him. No one would follow him far enough to matter. He knew that. Koda knew that too. But neither of them moved. Ethan stepped back from the window, picked up the ledger, the documents, then walked to the center of the room and set them down on the table. Not hidden, not buried, visible. He turned toward the door, walked over, opened it. Cold air rushed in again. But this time, he didn't block it, didn't fight it. He left the door open. Koda looked up at him. Ethan nodded once. "Yeah," he said. "Stays open." The wind moved through the house, carrying dust, carrying cold, carrying something new into the space that had been sealed for too long. Ethan walked back inside. Didn't close the door. Didn't latch it. Just let it be. Night came slowly. No engines returned. No footsteps followed. For the first time since he'd arrived, the house held still without tension. Ethan sat down against the wall, back straight, eyes half-lidded but aware. Koda curled beside him, careful with his leg, but close enough to feel, always close. The lantern burned low, its light steady, not flickering, not fading. Upstairs, the hidden room remained open. Below it, the vault stayed sealed, and between them, a man who had nothing left when he arrived now held something heavier than money, something that couldn't be carried away, only kept. The wind moved through the doorway again, soft, steady, like breath. Ethan didn't look at it, didn't need to. He closed his eyes, not sleeping, just resting. And for the first time in a long while, his hand didn't reach for a weapon that wasn't there. It rested instead against the warm weight of the dog beside him. Outside, the ridge stretched quiet under the dark. Inside, the house no longer felt empty. The light stayed on, and it didn't go out. If you made it all the way here, you already know this wasn't just about a house. So tell me this. If you were in Ethan's place, would you walk away with the money, or stay and carry that weight? Type 1 if you'd stay. Type 0 if you'd leave. I read every comment. And if stories like this stay with you, hit subscribe, because the next one might hit even closer to home. I'll see you in the next story.